basically, amps, they have like sometimes multiple speakers. If you're miking things, like you might get phase issues with miking on different speakers, but then the different speakers just might be slightly different, so it's like kind of cool because you get slightly more treble out of one and bass out of the other just based off the oldness or the wear down of the gear. But you can obviously mic them on one thing and then sort of phase align them after. I find it actually it's easier to phase align if you're like on different things because it's like it's not they're not so close to each other where it's like slightly different. But I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Maybe it's better to like mic it on one. Yeah, I'm usually just using a 57 on a guitar amp, so I'm like hardly ever doing two mics. Like I don't find I usually get good results with that. But take a 57. That'll give you like a really punchy sound. If you start moving it away, you'll start to get like less punch, but like more body out of it. My go-to with guitar amps is I'll do like an off-axis pointed at the cone. That's just to my ears what sounds good. Like I don't know, you guys might tell me something. Anybody have other things that they like out of miking guitar amps? Like
if they're the same inside, like
Yeah.
if like 4 of them, then like we use 3, for example.
Yeah.
We'll use either different mics, or you can use the same mic, but one can be off axis for more treble, and then one can be at the center. So then you'll get 3 different sounds from the same mic, even from the same amp.
Yeah.
But depends on.
Would you do them on the same cone or on all different
I
three?
do different cones, yeah.
Yeah. I think that sometimes you run into phase issues when you do that too, so you have to like line up the mics afterwards. Another thing people do is like they mic the back of the amp, which gives you like a really whoopy sound.
I don't know a lot of rock. They do same cone, one straight on, one off axis.
Yeah.
That's like a
Yeah. A classic other mic is the Royer 121. It's like a really good ribbon mic that's like good for guitar amps.
Sounds great on
Needs to be a little bit further away because it can't take the pressure, whereas this thing can take a lot of pressure. That's pretty much guitar stuff. Obviously, like the pedals you use, the guitar you use, the amp you use, that's going to matter a lot more than the mic you use. Right. Moving on to piano.
This was this.
So with piano, if you're doing like a classical concerto, I've seen people put like 17 mics on the piano. You can go like really crazy. Each one of these, obviously you got the low strings here and the high strings here, so like a classic just 2 mic setup would be like right in the middle, spread out just in the middle, sort of away, like around where the hammers are. If you want to be get more of like the attack of the piano, point them towards the hammer. A little bit more of the body and less attack away, like where they are right now. This was left up probably by Spencer, and like he's great at recording. I would look at that and be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Me personally, I kind of like a little bit more of like a punchier sound with piano, so I might move this half a foot forward and angled a little bit more towards the hammers. I find that with these bad boys, they're Neumann mics, they're ribbons. They get a lot of the low end because they're a little bit bigger, but with KM184s, you don't really hear the low end as much, so I'll put like a Coles right around here. And like my rule of thumb is like 3-to-1 trick, so if these mics are this far away from the sound, I want them to be at least 3 times that away from each other, and if there's a third mic, 3 times away from that. So after 3, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to get as much phase cancellation because it's just far enough that it's just like natural phase. It's not like going to be like out of phase. So yeah, I'll put like a bass mic here. Might put a 421 sort of like underneath the piano, pointed up towards the bass side, like right underneath there. And then with these holes here, what are these called again? Like this is like the plate of the piano. So like if you mic into one of these, you get like a kind of like a toy piano effect. But yeah, pretty much my typical piano setup would be those two with like a Coles or a U87 or some sort of large diaphragm mic pointed towards the bass. And maybe sort of pointed at the length of the strings here, but I might experiment with like a duller sound here or like a really dull sound underneath the piano to just get like kind of like the rumble. And then you just want to make sure that like these guys middle is like around middle C, so that when you're playing in the middle, they're both capturing it. And when you're playing on your low side, it's coming out of the left speaker, and your high side is more out of the right side of the speaker. And you just pan them like that. That's piano. Synth, you just plug it in. That's all you do.
Idea.
You know? You just take the left, right, put them through some Neves. Bob's your uncle. Yeah. What other instruments? Like, there's so many cool instruments you can make. Like a tambourine, for example. Like, pretty much any vocal mic will sound good on a tambourine. Just like get the singer to go back in front of the vocal mic and just like play the tambourine track.
What about sax?
Even if it's not really close. Saxophone?
So like,
Probably with horns and stuff, like my go-to would be the Coles. Just because it's like the sax has such a metallic sound. It's like it dulls that a little bit. If you put like a U87 or something on the sax, I think you might end up with just like a really screechy sounding instrument.
I think it's also more placement. Like, how would you place like a
Sax, I would probably have a room mic.
mic?
So room mic would just be like maybe off to the left or the right, or like in front of him, depending on where I am in the studio and what I have to use with. Like I've done sax where the player's here playing at the band, room mic kind of coming in from the side, and then just like a Coles like right in front of the horn, sort of pointed down at it, or like if you don't want that much of like a honking sound, kind of towards the holes in the saxophone too, because those project sound as well.
Okay.
So yeah, you just kind of want to make sure you're capturing the whole instrument. If you point it right at the thing, you're not going to get much of the top notes. You know what I mean?
Cool.
What
Thanks.
about violin or like any of like?
Violin. So with violin, Royers are really good. Like the 121, right outside of the F hole, like the hole in the violin. That's a really good place. With violins, I will pretty much always mic from above because the F hole is going like that. So like a Royer facing down like that, classic mic. If you want to do a room mic, like a large diaphragm as well. Cello's a little harder because it's like a big instrument, so you probably have like a Royer on the F hole, and then probably like experiment, maybe like a 441, like that long snare mic, pointed at the other F hole, maybe like a U87 or like a large diaphragm a little further away, like the rule 3-1. So if that's this close, like that far away, capturing more of the body of the cello. Maybe like a mic for just the bow. Like if you have the Royer on the F hole, maybe put the 441 where it's actually striking the strings, and then the room mic sort of pointed towards. I think with the room mic, I'd want it to be sort of towards the body of it, but I might even do like a fifth or fourth mic, which is just sort of like towards the hands. That's just I don't know if this is typical, but like with guitar, like I'll try to like record the string side as well as the body, and then maybe one at the middle, because you're gonna get like some of that like top definition from the strings, body from the whole of the guitar, and maybe even around the bridge, like actually pointed at the wood, like a more like woofy sound. Or with guitar, like a lot of the times, like what I do is like if the hole is right here, and I want to mic it with one mic. If I want a bassier sound, typically like my starting position will be above the hole but pointed at the 12th fret. So I'm not getting just the bass, I'm getting both. And if I want a little bit less of the bass, but like still one mic but I still want bass and I still want the top end, I'll put it above the 12th fret but pointed at the hole. So like 12th fret would be here and the hole would be here.
Gotcha.
And then you just play with, I would probably try to get it as close as I can. I usually tell my guitarists, I'm like, is this in danger zone? Because if they're strumming and stuff, I don't want them to hit the mic, and like I'll just get right up in their business, and they'll be like, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, okay. And I'll tell them like the mic is supposed to be at the 12th fret, because a lot of times people will just move around and think it doesn't matter. So they're like, just try to like keep it there.
One thing I have, especially with acoustic guitar players, is they'll just like, I'll get my mic placement and then they'll start playing and they'll completely move.
Yell at them.
And they'll just like, and I'm like, okay, try to stay where you are, and they're just like, they just keep moving around.
I always preface it like, I want you to be comfortable, but the mic is directional. Yeah. So that mic's not going to pick you up the way you want it to if you're too comfortable. Like, you know what I mean? Be comfortable, but like,
try to tell artists that.
I'll spend sometimes 5 minutes just like adjusting their chair, like getting them to sit back and like be like, okay, I'm actually going to be here, and then like place that mic there, you know? Yeah. So they're not like awkward in their chair, you know what I mean? Like get them comfortable and then be like, this is a directional mic, stay where you are, you know?
Okay, so then one more thing, like what about for choirs? Like not mics, but like placement. Like how many mics would you use and where do you place them?
With choirs, I'll usually like, if I'll I'll ask like kind of like the director, whoever, like who's the best singer, and like I'll pick like the leads of their section. I'll be like, okay, those people are at the front, and I'll put like, let's say it's like a typical SATB sort of like soprano, alto, tenor, bass thing. I'll put 4 mics in front of those people about 2 feet away from them, like sort of close miking them, and then like large diaphragm condenser. 2 mics are really great for like choirs and stuff because they get a lot. And then I'll do like an XY sort of like of the whole choir. XY is like when you take 2 mics and like point them like that, so you're kind of getting the left and the right. And you just got to make sure you patch them right so that when you put them into Pro Tools, like the left side of the choir is on the left and the right's on the right because they're reversed. And then room mic, like large diaphragm room mic is going to go a long way. And that's pretty much it. You don't really want to close like too many people in a choir because that's not a choir, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put the good singers in the front.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Yeah. Any other choir tips? I don't know. Anybody else record choirs? No.
It's important to just mic them by section, essentially, just so you
Yeah.
can have control over that mix.
Yeah.
In the end. But
Similar thing with string quartets, like an XY, a room mic, like a sort of like a medium close XY mic, a farther room mic, and then close mics on each of the strings. With string sections, it's like you're not dealing with 10 people, or you're dealing with less, so you can, and you really want to get the definition of the cello and the viola and all that. So I'll close mic those guys. With like Royers if I have enough, or like large diaphragm condensers, or even KM 184s if it's like a violin, and I'll pick like the high, like a violin, the smallest diaphragms, and like the basses, the biggest diaphragms, and then I'll get those nice and above the F holes, like close mic'd, and then also like the room sound further away, and then just blend them together.
So for the further mic, it's only 1 mic. You don't put it like a
The
stereo.
XY is 2,
Yeah,
and then I'll put the a far room
only 1.
as one, or no, two or
Okay.
more. Like it really depends also what you're miking. Like in here, it's not a really reverberant room, but if it's like a church or something, I'll point mics into corners, like not even at the thing. Like I
Nice.
want to get I want to get that corner sound. Like what's that reverb sound?
Okay.
A lot of times though, like when you're mixing those things in, unless you're mixing a symphony, you want the close mic sound. Whereas if you're mixing just a symphony, you want the far mic sound. It's like a pop production.
Okay.
Usually my far mics are just muted. I'm just going with the close mics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
With choirs though, it's a little bit different because it's like, even if I'm doing a pop production, if I'm using a choir, it's like really intentional to make it big. So I want those to be bigger. Whereas if I'm using strings, it's like intentionally to get like emotion out of a part of the song. I really want to hear those string arrangements, like all the notes. But again, it's like depends on the song. If you want like a symphony in the middle of your track, use more of the far mics, less of the close.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah.
point the mic at the sound. That's all you want.
Yeah.
Like, whatever you think would sound good for that record, that's what you use. But put more mics up than you think you need, so you have the choices afterwards.
Okay, perfect.
You know.
Yeah, I was assisting for Calgary Philharmonic one season, and we had like 50 mics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's like big trees with a bunch of mics.
Yeah, we had the
and, like,
Decca tree on the
mics.
top that we hang, and then we'd have the lead, like the first of each section, and then you'd have additional for each section.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
Yeah. What was that? Philharmonic.
The Calgary Philharmonic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, I would love to work as like a string engineer's assistant for a day.
Yeah, it was wild.
Pick up all the tips as
Yeah.
to how to like mic everything
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff,
It's not really my wheelhouse yet.
Soon enough, bro.
Everything
Yeah.
has to be so tidy too, like perfectly like taped.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was great
Um,
at string ensemble recordings. The Spencer.
Let's go in and talk about recording bands. Who did the string ensemble? You did? Was
Yeah,
Spencer?
show us your ring and talk.
Oh, well, I've done
Oh, yeah.
a couple of those
Yeah,
with
you
them,
still
but,
listen to
like,
a lot.
I know
Yeah.
Hans Walton,
For real.
Noble and
Yeah.
Revolutions.
Oh, yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Yes.
Oh,
Sick, bro. I got these wire code because I got a production.
yeah, we did the one for, remember
that
that
one, not gonna lie.
Will Ferrell Renaissance movie, Spirited?
It's one of like like
We tracked the score for that.
So like basically,
Except that was like
he's been like on hiatus
that
for like I
day
think like
because
a
the
long
piano
time, right?
Didn't
get to.
Yeah, so I got really lucky, got like the production part of it, and
Like,
just a fun record. It was fun. I didn't get
Nice.
too much mixing credit, but you know, I take what I can. Yeah, I take what I can. Yes, sir. Sorry, I think you was my dad. Alex?
Oh, nice to see you, bro.
Sound
see you again.
Done a couple
Yeah, man.
shows with them, but it's live. So funny and tricky. Yeah.
No, the gospel. I did one with Brett actually.
Yeah.
This was out of commission for a while. They fixed it. Is it
Which one?
this one, the CL.
So you guys.
The tube tech?
Yeah, two tech.
You're telling me about
No, it works. Oh, the 11 cent.
There was one that was just like sitting out for a while.
Oh yeah, it just wasn't plugged in.
Oh, but it was fine.
Yeah. I was like, why are we not using it?
Yeah.
Yeah, classic.
I gotta be fun.
Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks for having us, bro.
Yeah, man.
Love to hear
Oh, did you lock the front? Charlie, did you lock the front downstairs?
They had
It
such
still
a
isn't
rehearsed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, such wall rehearsal.
They were going
Yeah.
All you need
with
was
my
one
semester.
guitar.
They did pretty good.
And it's such a shared room.
It's so tricky when there's choirs in a church. That's why it's live. So I'll have small background. There used to be shotgun mics, ones on either side of the school, but then they also need to have monitors and there's soloist mics. So a line of stereo mics, like
It's the same. Not the same. Hybrid.
Okay, guys. We're almost done. And you guys can hang out obviously afterwards too and make friends. I want to just like quickly go through like what a template would look like for recording a band. So if I'm starting from scratch, I actually have a template, but I'm not going to use it because this is cooler to show you. I'll just start by making 20 mono tracks. And then I'll go through. I'll go kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bot, tom 1, tom 2, oops. The overhead, I'm going to have to change the track width to stereo. Oh, that did all of them. No! Go back to mono. So you can change the track width afterwards. It's a cool new Pro Tools thing. Overhead. And then I might have a room close, which is like right in front of the kit, sort of at the back wall. And then the room far will be that like listen mic that I set up in the room. And then hat, ride, and then I might have bass DI, then I might have electric 57, electric DI. What else? Keys. We'll make that, let's say it's like a synth player or something. Make that stereo. And then scratch vocal, lead vocal. What am I missing? That's pretty much a typical band, right? Am I missing anything? No?
No.
Alright. Can delete the extra tracks. So I'll color code them. My drums, I used to make them brown for wood, but since working with Bob, I make them pink now. Bass, I make it blue because it's a B. Guitars, I make them green because they start with a G. Keys, I make them purple for no real reason.
Guys,
I make
color coordinating is more important than you think.
Yeah, I make them kind of a different purple than I would my aux or my effects returns because I don't want to confuse them. And then vocals are always red. And then BGs are kind of like a different shade of purple than the others.
You do drums in purple, you said?
Yeah, drums purple or like
Oh,
brown.
okay.
Brown is kind of cool too. It's just
Yeah,
not
I do
very
brown.
pretty to look at. It doesn't make you really inspired. So I'll start by making a kit group, and then I'll make a electric group. And this is just so when I'm doing overdubs, they're ready. And then keys, and then everything that's going to be in the room live recorded, like the guys that are playing at the same time, I'm going to group those. So let's say it's the keys, electric, bass, and scratch vocal. And I'm going to make a group called takes. So now that I have that, I'll take my kick in, snare top, tom 1 and 2, and overhead, and I'll route them out of HP1. And then I'll make that pre-fader. My bass, let's say it's on 2. My electric 57, I'll mute the DI, 57, I'll put out of 3. let's say keys are on 4, scratch vocals on 5 is out of commission, so I'm just going to go on a 6. I'm going to put my click on 7.
The headphone mixes, right?
Yep. And then I'm gonna I need a talkback for a band record. I'll put that out of 8. Just select all those tracks, and then open one of these up, hold Shift Option, and then hit pre, so they all turn pre-fader. Again, that's so they can adjust their own things, and I can do my own thing. And then, you know, if I'm sort of like leveling it up in sound check, or like when we're testing levels, I'll go in and just adjust the pre-faders to roughly match whatever I've done there, so that at least they have like a rough balance that they can work with, and then they can turn it all over up and down overall. And then if I go in and like, let's say I don't need as much overheads later on, I'll like just go and adjust that, so at least their headphones sound relatively like what mine do. Okay, and then now I'm like, everything's patched in, all the mics are there, it's all good, compressors are set, we've checked the whole band, I've got the drummer to go through his kick, I'm making sure I'm not clipping at all, like, really, like, you don't need to aim for anywhere above like -12, like, you can record hotter if you want more color out of your signal and stuff, but you're just going to end up with like, you're going to end up having to turn faders down so that your master doesn't clip, because like if everything's recorded super hot, you have no real room. And all this Pro Tools stuff, like, it's depending on how you've calibrated things. Pro Tools like runs a lot, like analog gear is basically built to basically hit the sweet spot around -18 or -20 where Pro Tools is at. So if I'm like recording really hot, I'm probably like driving my preamps too loud. So like, you don't really need to worry that much. Like back in the day, you'd probably want to record a little hotter, and even now it's important because your noise to signal ratio, like out of your preamps and stuff, like if you're recording too quiet, you're getting some of that self noise from the actual thing, like compressor or mic or whatever. And it's like when you're boosting it after, you're also boosting it with the noise. So there is an argument to be made of like recording at a nice healthy level, and then just like also just turning your fader down. Like by default, I'm probably like turning everything down there. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to be clipping my master, but I also want to be like recording hot enough that I'm not getting too much self noise out of the gear. But if you're like recording around like -12, like at the beginning of the oranges, the noise to signal ratio is already healthy enough. If you're recording at like -32 and things are barely coming up, when you start boosting things, it's just going to be full of noise. So gain staging's definitely a factor. So now that I have my group, when I'm ready to do a take, I go to a new playlist. I am going to make sure these are all off so I don't do something crazy. I'm going to record, oh, actually wait, I'm just going to put them on like my 2-track. Let's turn it, did that fall off?
I think you just said no.
Oh.
You clip it again too. You can clip it to your hat if you want.
Oh, sure.
Oh, nice.
I like this better. Yeah, so basically you start with take 1, and like usually I tell them like the first 3 takes is just like get accustomed to things, like don't worry about it sounding too perfect at the beginning, because we're gonna like talk about tempo mapping, and like we might have to adjust things, and like they might be a little bit out of the groove with each other. So I'll record take 1, we'll finish that, we'll record take 2, we'll finish that of the song, record take 3, and then take 3 is usually when I'm like, okay, I invite them back, let's listen to it, let's see what we have. Is there any water in the coffee?
Just one.
No, it's okay. And then we'll talk about it, and then we might punch things in or whatever. I didn't really talk about tempo mapping, but the way you tempo map is you go in here. Oh, weird! It looks different now. It's a new Pro Tools. Turn off.
It's like QuickTime.
Oh, sorry. Turn on this thing. So when this is on, whatever the session tempo is at doesn't matter anymore. Now it's just based off the tempo map. So like let's say it's 120. We'll go through the song, and then I might be like, okay, there I need to like boost a little bit. So I'll like tell the engineer if I'm engineering, be like, all right, let's make a tempo marker there. Let's go up 124. And then I'll see how that feels. Oops. Let's just delete everything. Okay. And then there's all sorts of ways to actually tempo map. So let's say if like jumping to 124 is not good, you go tempo operations. Oops, where did it go? So I can go linear. So it's starting wherever I've selected, it like follows along. So before I do that, let's say I delete that. Let's say I want it to go up to 124. It knows where the start and end is based off my selection. And I go 124, and now it'll create up. You'll see it's actually going up incrementally every step. You can go S curve. You can change like the curve of like curvature of how it actually tempo maps it. So if I go like that and 124, it'll like kind of like match that curve to go up. You know what I mean? So you can go parabolic, which is like just a regular old curve. So I can do that. You go like that. Typically, like though, like I'm pretty much on constant all the time, and I'll do like a hard cut, and it's like the drummer is following the click, and it's like they're naturally already speeding up there, and by the time they get there, they're at that tempo, and then they go on. It's like if they're a little bit off from the click for a second, it doesn't really matter because when you turn the click off, it sounds like they're just jamming. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how you tempo map. I'll go through the whole song and like maybe add like other sections. I'll be like, okay, this needs to go back down, or whatever.
Is it super important to be like always on the one? Because like sometimes I don't even have tempo. I just work off like no tempo, free tempo, right? Like. Oh
yeah, if you don't have any tempo, then it's like that's fine. It's just like once you get the drums recorded, you can punch in, and then once the drums are recorded, you just overdub to the drums. So sometimes you don't even need a tempo for sure. I find it's like just easier to have because like
delays and stuff. Maybe.
When you're like delays, but when you're adding like you're automating your tempo and then all your plugins are mapped to the MIDI of that, right? And they're synced. Or when you're like overdubbing different things, like you might be turning elements down and up, and it's just like that click is keeping you in. So like it's just nice to have a click. If you're like if you're adding MIDI or something like other instruments afterwards, like it's just way easier to have a tempo. It just makes it easier to build out your track, especially in modern production. Like if you're just like recording a band that's just like everything's happening all at once, you don't need a tempo for sure.
I've also had some artists that like cannot play to a click for shit, and it would just waste an entire day and the whole vibe, and so I just am like whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you gonna mess them up, the flow and stuff?
So let's say I've recorded a bunch of things. I might be like, okay guys, that take was, and I'm writing like on my take. I have a take sheet usually, so what that usually looks like is this. So for basically like for like lyrics, you'll have like all of your lyrics here, and then while I'm doing my recording, I'll write down like, I'll listen to the song, and if we're on take one, I'll be like, one was good on that, and usually if you're the engineer, like, and if you're with an experienced producer, he'll expect you to just be able to shout out things and just be like, that one, and then he'll ask you like, what did we miss? Be like, we don't have a good take for take two, and then you'll just go in and punch that take in, or that line in. With different instruments, what I'll do, or with like the whole bed of the track, I don't care about the lyrics. I'm just gonna write down the structure of the song, and I'll make sure that like in Pro Tools I've dropped markers like pre, chorus, verse, whatever, so that I know when I'm saying verse 1, P1, C1, re-intro, C or V2, C2, post, bridge, and then C3, outro, whatever, typical song structure, and then I'll have it like this all the way throughout, and then I'll write the take numbers up here. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. And while I'm listening, I'm mostly listening to like the drums because that's like the bait. You can overdub everything else after. But if I'm like, the drums were real and like everything matters. So I'm like, okay, the band was really good in that take on the verse 1, chorus 1, C2, whatever. And then like, let's say we get to 4 and like everything's good, but I'm like, oh, we missed that post. Let's punch in for it. I'll basically tell them like, okay, you're gonna have. It's important to be exact. Like, where are we? Because they're all they're hearing is just you hit start and stop, and they're like really disjointed about like, or like they just don't know where they are in the song if you don't specifically tell them. So you're like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll be like, okay, let me find my spot. Okay, we're 8 clicks from the chorus. So I'll be like, you guys got to hit that chorus again. I'll say like, you're 8 clicks. Start playing and hit that chorus. We're gonna punch in there, and you know if they don't know what punching in is, you have to explain it to them. But usually they know. Go like that. You're in quick punch mode, and we'll punch in the chorus. And in this case, sometimes if they really fucked it up, I'll just record right over it. But if I think there was pieces I might want to use in that full take, I'll duplicate playlists. So now I'm on number 5, but you see how it kept everything, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll do the chorus again, go through it, and then now I have like take 6 or I guess take 5 is mostly 4, but it's just a punch in on the chorus of 5, and then from there basically, let's say I'm looking through my sheet and I'm like, okay, this is a really solid take, but the verse 1 of take 1 was the best. I'll go Shift Command and then go back to it started on 3 because I don't think I had anything on the other ones. Let's say take 3 was the best for the verse. I'll just like punch that in there and then add my fades. And if I need to, like the kick is like happening a little bit forward, I'll nudge these things around so that it sounds like one take. And I'll get the rough comp of it, and then after all of that, I'll go in and like time the drums. If the drums are in time with themselves, I'll just leave them. If they just like are really out of time with themselves, like I'll have to like first go. I'll usually do this. I'll like solo just the drums, and then make sure that they're in time with themselves, and then time everything to that. That's usually how it goes. It's like you make sure the drums are in, and then match everything to that. Yeah.
So for editing drums in time, what do you use the most? Beat Detective or?
I do it by hand.
By hand. Okay.
Yeah.
But as in groups, right? Like you're still.
Yeah, in groups.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Like there's different tricks you can do. Like sometimes, like if the kit is kind of like in, but just the kick is out, just move the kick tracks. There's going to be bleed in the overheads, but like you're not going to really be able to tell for that one little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can kind of break the rules a little bit like that. And then I'll go in and I'll adjust the rest. Let's say I want to change the whole tempo of the whole song. I'll grab everything. I'll slap it into Pro Tools. Has this great new one called Elastic Pro, which is it's super fast, but it sounds really good. Xform used to be the best one, but it takes a long time. So I'll put it in Elastic Pro, and then if I add a tempo change, or like I want to increase the whole tempo of the whole song, it'll stretch things out for me. So you'll see the tempo changed. But you have to be in Elastic Pro, but also in ticks here. So if I change the tempo now, you'll see the selection got a lot smaller, but it's still on the grid. So everything got compressed time-wise. And then once I'm done, I'm locked in the tempo, I'll commit this because I don't want it to process every time I do like an edit or something. It'll show up blue like that because it needs time to render, and I just want to like work fast. So we'll wait for that to process. You hit this thing, and it'll tell you when it's done. And then boom, 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 boom. And then I'm not sure. I wonder if it does the other playlists as well. Yeah, it did. So you see how they all have that Elastic Pro? So it actually did it on all the playlists, which is nice because you can continue comping at that new tempo. And then, you know, once you're done that, like a lot of some common things you'll do is like they'll be like, okay, I want to I want to add a tom fill to just this thing. So then I'll just add the toms and the overheads and the rooms. And before I duplicate those tracks for overdubs, I'll hop into my group. I'll go back to take number 1. I'll remember what take I was on, because I don't want those 0.5s to be in the name when I duplicate it. So I'll just duplicate, just Shift Option D. Group assignments I don't want, because now I'm doing overdubs. I'm going to make a new group for the overdubs. I don't want alternate and active playlists, but I want everything else. And then I'll take these, I'll drop them here, make them a slightly different color, and now I know that color is my overdubs. So then for overdubs, this needs an input. For overdubs, I'll record enable that, and I'll just make this drum OD, make a new playlist, and now I can just do that tom fill that he wanted to do. Or if they're like, okay, I want to add a shaker to the track, and they're just doing it into the overheads, now I have that as like an overdub. And then you might be like, okay, that's great. Bass playing with shit though. I'll just like turn off my takes group. And then let's say, one thing I forgot to do is go back to, before I did my overdubs, I was supposed to go back to take number 5. Because that had my comp on it. Be like, okay, that's great. I just want to redo the bass. I'll take off the takes playlist, make a new playlist for the bass, and let him play the song down again. Oops, I gotta make sure that's in the record enable. Or if he's like, I just want to punch in that one part, I'll just record enable just him, fix that one part, and like that. Sometimes I'm like, the guitars were just like off the whole time. I'll go back to this basic. A lot of the times you're making a lot of guitar overdubs because it's like you want to have different parts. So I'll make like 5 duplicates of the guitar, and then for each one, I'll make it like a new thing, like not duplicate, group, be like electric 2, and now I'll do just the electric overdubs on electric duplicate 1, and I might call this like lead or whatever. You know what I mean? Or just make new tracks, call it lead 57, lead DI. And then do my overdubs like that. And then obviously, once the beds are kind of in a good place and you're ready to do lead vocals, mute the scratch vocal, and then you're just recording just the lead vocal, and we do all the vocal production and stuff like we talked before. So really, like, it's like a different beast in terms of the setup and like the miking and like comping and like having the takes and all that stuff, but once you wrap your head around that, like I just showed you, it's like not that strange, I think. You know? Any questions about that? Who's done band record? Yeah? You guys? Anybody else? No. It's not that hard, right? Doesn't seem that hard. It's a little bit daunting at first. The worst thing is when like your mics don't work or something. You have to like go and scramble to find which mic's not working or whatever. It's like, and usually with bands, I'm like 2 hours before the session, I'm just like setting up mics, and then we have an hour of loading in, and then like 30 minutes of that load in is just setting up, and then it's like 30 minutes just checking things. So like by the time it's like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, I got here at like 9 or something, and we're like ready to record at 12. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of setup before that. Obviously the teardown is terrible too. Yeah.
With you were talking about like Beat Detective and drum editing before. I mean, Beat Detective is, I would recommend against it because it makes a lot of mistakes. Like it can't help like smaller sections. Some people always find what works for them.
Yeah.
Years ago, I like in 2019, I worked with my old rock band. We worked with this engineer, Vic Valencia.
Okay.
Really great engineer, like but old school. Started in the 90s or whatever. So he doesn't care about all these fancy tricks and tools, and he trusts his ears over everything else, which is honestly one of the most important rules to constantly keep in mind.
Yeah.
Trust your ears. Don't trust your eyes. Don't trust, just trust what you hear, and if it sounds good, it sounds good.
Yeah.
But what this guy did, and he just had his method down to the T. So we would track the bed tracks, we would do guitar and bass, and we'd lock that in on the floor, get that like really nice live feel for the rhythm section. And then he'd be like, okay, before we do overdubs, give me 45 minutes. And I peek in, and I see him blasting like bar by bar. You've tabbed a transient on in grid mode, so you tap your transient, cut at the transient, snap it into the grid, and he's just doing that for every single, like, not even bar, every single beat.
Yeah.
So it's like locked into the grid.
Whoa.
But that's also like, that's personal preference too.
Yeah.
Some people, like, we went to this other guy, Brad, who ended up being our engineer for the rest of our, you know, whatever, our run. And he likes the more natural feel. So he goes in and he'll take the drums and bass and he'll like find something that's a little bit off, or like that's noticeably off, and then he'll fix that.
Yeah.
But the rest he kind of leaves to that free flow. So I don't know. It always depends on what you do, because then there's also the Sum 41 method. Does anyone know what the Sum 41 method is?
I've heard that before, but I don't know what.
So I'm just calling it that. I don't know. Maybe there's another name. I just know they do it. Basically, the drummer, engineer, and producer go into the studio, and they like every single part of the drums. They'll just like tracking every single dynamic velocity as well as different parts of the drums, and then they just go into their DAW and build it from every single sample.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you get these like crazy hi-fi robotic sounding drums. Is because they are tracking it, but they're tracking it in pieces. And then they just like, oh, let's take you know, slightly less dynamic tom for this fill. So it still sounds natural, but it's literally built by the machine. So yeah.
I've heard this crazy thing from this old engineer who's I've been learning some analog stuff from, just repairs and stuff. But he is like, oh yeah, like I don't like it straight to the click. Like I put an LFO on my click track so that it doesn't sound like so. And I was like, what? But it's like a very gentle LFO. It wouldn't be like just so subtle. And I was like, that sounds fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's wild.
Cool.
It's all the minutiae of going into capturing the feeling. Right?
Yeah.
So, are you talking about mapping clicks to the track?
Well, just like
tap to transient and just drop and
I was talking about like Vic Florencia, like what he would do. He like we track the beds, and then he'd be like, "Give me 45 minutes," and I peek in the room, and he's just like,
and that could be done in 2 seconds with Keyboard Maestro too.
Yeah. But he doesn't believe in the fancy tricks because he started doing it in the 90s,
He
right?
just
So
wants to make his life harder.
Yeah. It works. I guess.
I would do Keyboard Maestro for that for sure. I've had to do that before.
Yeah,
make a click.
Is the snap grid thing that you said, like, is that a command key that it's on the document?
Well, there's like tab to transient is it's literally just T.
B and then drag.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you just drag it. You have to have grid mode on, so you cut it at the transient, and then you just drag it, and then it'll snap in.
Yeah.
I'll show you guys Beat Detective if you really want to show. If you really want to see it.
I know for drums sometimes people record cymbals and shit separate from shells. That way you have like more.
Yeah. That's a
over,
great thing to do, but like, man, is it annoying.
Yeah, it's actually.
I was telling them about the Sum 41 method of tracking every single part of the kit at different
like
velocities,
sampling your,
and then just building it inside Pro Tools or whatever they use.
Yeah.
Blows my mind. Anthony, how much were you in for?
Where are we at? 10 o'clock?
We're about an hour behind.
That's okay. I mean, people can roll out whenever they want to. Maybe I'll skip Beats Detective, actually. Tempo mapping, timing, take sheet, comping, takes grooves. That's kind of like the gist of it, like in terms of the band record. So I'm going to move on to little tricks I do in drums. I can show you guys, and I can also move on to the next thing, which is sort of outboard gear. Don't save. Where's Hamza? Did he leave?
He had to go. I think like an hour ago. Yeah.
I think the Sum 41, Charlie. I'm pretty sure Brian mentioned that before. Like the one that is like.
Oh yeah. I think I actually told him.
Slowly dying.
As well. Yeah.
Where we at?
Because he assisted
People
on
watching
my
stuff?
session
Right now.
at Kensington.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's how I went there.
Okay, that's great.
He was like Daisy. Have you met Daisy?
Is he one of like the?
Well, he's the owner.
Yeah. He's the one that like. Because I met the staff when a friend was playing there in the live. Is he the one that presents usually like the concerts?
I don't know, because the one live thing that I went to, he didn't talk at all. Like, he wasn't there. Jackson was like the younger guy. The guy who runs Big Fan Jam. he like it's the big fan jam session. But Vazy is like he's the 78-year-old Indian guy who looks like he's not a day over 30.
Oh, I don't know.
He looks so unbelievably good, especially for someone who's been in the music industry for 50 years.
I think I met the other person.
Well, there's Harrison is like the main engineer, and Nash.
I think it was Harrison.
Harrison I actually haven't met yet.
Okay.
Dude.
He has a beard. He's not younger. He's not young.
He's like younger than me.
Okay.
Yeah. But Nash, I know Nash is like a little bit older than me. Like
Okay.
30 or something. But he's a good engineer, a great drummer.
Oh, that's great.
That guy. He's awesome.
Wait, Nash?
Yeah, Nash Nan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the homie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he did the Halia sessions with me at Kensington.
Oh, cool.
We called him in as like a last minute drummer because Halia's main drummer kept getting too stoned and didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Don't say it on camera.
Yep. I mean, so and so's blank.
Hot mic.
Hot mic.
Yeah. Also, it's a big fucking thing. If your producer is saying something about the band, make sure that the talkback is off, and make sure that it's not being recorded.
Oh yeah. That happened once, yeah.
Yeah, like be like very like vocal about when your talkback's on and off. Like, don't just be the guy that's like always hitting the talkback. Like, give it to the producer. Don't even take it away from yourself. Like, let them talk to them when they want to talk. You know? Also, I don't have fucking time to engineer and also be holding talkback all the time. I don't care. Foot pedals are nice because you don't have to be using your hands, but like, yeah, definitely talkback is important. So, this is one of my songs. It's pretty far into the mix. I'm just gonna make a save as so I don't ruin anything. And so, to even hear what's going on here, I need to walk you guys through my process of outboard mixing. So you'll see this is a pretty like intensive mix. We got a lot of elements going on: sax, returns, live drums, bass, everything. So this is my master. This is where everything's going. It's going through my EQ, my bus compression, dialing out some frequencies, soothe, a little bit more EQ, and then you'll see I'm gaining it down 14 because I'm going to send it out of outboard gear. And guys, if you want to come see what this is going on here, you're basically going to learn how to mix hybrid. There's so many, hybrid mixing is so much, but what I like to do, which saves me a lot of time, is like I set up my mix, I mix in the box, and then when I'm actually ready to do like an actual mix, after I'm done wrestling with the song, I go out of, what is that, 5/6. So I'm going to take output 5/6, which is the output of my master. Now see, it's not 1/2. Taking it out of 5/6, and then I'm gonna set up like an outboard mastering chain. So in this case, I had the Alan Smart doing more compression. And then out of the Alan Smart.
Your daisy chain them?
What's that?
Your daisy chain them?
Yeah, just one out of the other and back into Pro Tools. Out of the Alan Smart into Pultec. And I think out of the Pultec, I go into the Sontec for a little bit more reductive EQ, which is this guy here.
Was this the same chain we did for the?
No.
No, that was different. Well, did we?
Similar, very similar.
It was similar.
Yeah.
We,
Mastering chain?
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're basically mastering now, right? You're not. Your mix is kind of done, and you're just mastering.
I'm mixing through this, so it's not mastering. It's just it's on my
just like
master.
your
It's my mix bus.
mix bus.
Analog
So
mix
you-
bus.
So you know exactly how your mix is going to sound through the master that you have.
I also master and mix and all that. It's like for me, it's just all in one process.
process.
Kind of like I separate it a bit. Like I don't fuck with the clipper too much or limiters. Like for me, mastering is pretty much like getting my clipper and my limiter set right.
Yeah.
But like all my EQ, my reductive stuff is happening sort of in the mix
Yeah.
because I'm self-mastering a lot of the time.
Yeah, fair.
Out of the Sontec, now I'm going to go back into my print track, which is the first one pre-master. So that's going to go into Pro Tools 5/6. You can see all that beautiful analog noise. Do you mind turning the monitor down a little bit?
Yeah, it's
That one. And I've sort of put chalk markers here to like mark where things were, so I hope that they're correct. reset. I hope it was there. I would suck if it wasn't. Just set my stuff to where it was.
Pretty much the exact same process that I do too.
Yeah.
It's like after you mix it on in the box, you bring that to hardware, and then after you just clip and minutes.
Just keep it, yeah.
Just pretty much master.
Keep it sounding loud, bright, and colorful, yet in control.
Yeah, like minus
Yeah.
14 dot degrees, like pretty much.
Yeah,
This
the
bad boy.
trim trick is very, very handy.
Oh, I
So
really
you're not sacrificing any time. You're just crank down the outputs
just
and bring it right back up.
and then you push it in the.
Sorry, the output of the track is 1 and 2 or 3 and 4?
So it's going out of 5.6 to go through everything.
Okay.
And then, see it's coming back into 5.6.
Oh yeah.
That's my pre-master. So this is what I would send to a mastering engineer, and it's like, the gain staging is all kind of fucked up because like it's pretty low. But I think the thing is with the gear, remember the minus 18 rule. Like you don't want to send stuff out of Pro Tools at gear at like full volume. Always drop it down 20 dBs, so it's peaking like minus 20. It's peaking even like less right now, but it's okay. I have it sitting in a good place. I'm not too bad about it. And then that's going to my slate, and the slate's basically what an aux channel that has a trim bringing it back up, my flat line, which is my flipper, first limiter, which is just doing a dB or so, into a trim, which is like dropping it down 10 and then limiting it back up. That's like a trick I've learned. It like basically helps your track get even louder because there's only so many bits of volume that you can use. So when you master something in like full volume and then bring it down 10 and then bring it back up, you basically reduce the audio. You reduce like the amount of dynamics you can have, and then your crest, that's actually reducing your crest factor, and then you're bringing it back up so you can get even louder mixes.
Okay.
While still being like really dynamic. First thing I'm going to do when I'm doing my outboard stuff, I'm going to run some signal through it just to make sure that it's coming back evenly, because with like outboard gear and like your patch cable, sometimes it's not perfect, so it's looking good. And now I wanted to talk about a little bit about like this, like what I do to my my kicks and stuff. So let's hide all inactive tracks. You guys can sit again if you want. That was what I wanted to show you. But so, for example, on my kick, let's go to a chorus here. So it's not sounding quite right. Like I probably have some of the outboard gear in a different place. Like one of the marks fell off, but I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. So that's my kick. So you'll see on the kick, I've got some transients, a bit of EQ, bringing out some of the high end, bringing out a little bit more of the high end, getting that 1K up, and then adding some air, I think, to it. Yep. And then the real magic is this Mooger thing and the Fatso. So the Mooger, what it's doing is I'll bump it up for you. That's this thing here. So basically, you pick the frequency, and then the resonance, it starts to feed back on itself, but if you pull it back just to add some of that thump, you're getting that basically like 808 sound out of your kick. And I'm just blending blending it in super subtly. Like it could probably be even more, but I think I turned it down to like make room for the bass. And then this Fatso, this is a great like tape emulator from the same thing as the Distressor, the Imperial Labs. That's like my whole like parallel sound, and that's. I'm trying to think if it's on the snare. Yeah, it's on the snare too. So if I solo just the kicks and the snares. Listen to how much of the sound is this thing. And stuff that adds to it. And then what else do I have on the snare? I have the snare, there's like drum reverb, bus 2, what is that? Show only assignments to bus 2. Oh, that's nothing, so I'm going to turn that off. You want to have some reverb on the snare, and then yeah, like what else I want to talk about here? Yeah, I guess like mixing and stuff. So like with like EQs on instruments and stuff, this is like such a good weapon. The API is such a powerful EQ. That's really cool. The way I kind of like route my thing, so once I'm done tracking, my kicks will go to their kick aux, snares will go to my snare, and then everything else from the drums will go to the kit. And then sometimes those are going straight out of the master. Right now, I've decided to put them all through like an all drums. And that's doing a little bit of more stuff. My friend helped mix this one, so there's like some tricks in here that I'm like, I don't even know what to do. Soothe and stuff on the all drums. I'll give you the whole drum sound here. Oh. Now I'm in the mix, so I gotta turn my buffers way up. This is like an EDM trick that Hamza did. That's crazy. Clipping on the bass. And soon to finish it off. So what do I have on the guitars? Barely any distortion, but I like this distortion. This compressor adds like distortion as well. My favorite EQ again. Spectre's really cool. It's like a saturator, multi-band saturator, so it's like an EQ, but it's using saturation. Some mid-side EQ to help with phase. This tone filter spreads out a bit. More EQ. A little bit of trend in this soon. What else do I have here?
So you add 2 side chains to the bass?
I think it's just one, no?
That was 1? I thought it was... Yeah, the Soothe, right?
Oh, it's Soothe? Oh, sorry, that's the guitar. Yeah, Soothe is sidechaining from the kick with Soothe. Yeah. So this is just a general, like, compressor, and then this is just certain frequencies.
Oh, okay.
What is this? That's really low. That's almost like an Easter egg. Like you would never even think that.
Yeah.
turn this shit up now. It's just like patty stuff. And then vocals.
With no strings attached.